In the grand tapestry of the Ottoman Empire, woven with tales of conquest, glory and intrigue, some threads shine with brilliant, tragic light. Today, we unravel one such story, the life of Sultan Osman II, known to history as Genç Osman or Osman the Young. His reign was a brief, fiery comet that streaked across the Ottoman sky, leaving a trail of ambition, reform, and ultimately a shocking end that would forever change the empire he sought to save. Picture this, the year is 1618. The vast Ottoman Empire, stretching from the gates of Vienna to the shores of the Indian Ocean, is in a state of quiet crisis. The once invincible military is showing cracks, and the palace is a labyrinth of power struggles. Into this volatile world steps a 14-year-old boy, ascending to the most powerful throne in the Islamic world. This wasn't just any boy. This was Osman II. He wasn't placed there as a puppet. He had a mind of his own, a will of iron, and a vision that was both revolutionary and dangerous. Unlike many sultans before him who were content to let their grand viziers run the show, Osman wanted to rule, really rule. He was a hands-on monarch, a rare breed for his time. He'd walk the streets of Istanbul in disguise, checking market prices, listening to the common folk, and dispensing justice on the spot. He saw firsthand the corruption and the rot that had begun to creep into the state's foundations. He was fluent in multiple languages, a gifted poet, and possessed an intellect that far surpassed his years. He understood that for the empire to survive and thrive, it needed a radical shake-up, and he was just the man to do it. The main target of his reformist zeal was the very heart of the Ottoman military machine, the Janissaries. For centuries, this elite infantry corps had been the Sultan's ultimate weapon, the shock troops who had conquered half the world. But by the early 17th century, they had become something else entirely. They were a powerful, entrenched political force, a state within a state. They were more interested in their pay, their privileges, and their business dealings in the capital than in fighting on the frontiers. Their discipline had crumbled, and their loyalty was conditional. Osman's fears were confirmed during the 1621 campaign against the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. He led his army personally to the fortress of Khotyn in modern-day Ukraine. He expected a swift, decisive victory that would bolster his authority and serve as a prelude to his reforms. What he found instead was a disaster. The Janissaries fought with a distinct lack of enthusiasm. They complained about the harsh weather, the long campaign, and the difficult siege. The battle ended in a stalemate, a far cry from the glorious conquest Osman had envisioned. For the young sultan, the writing was on the wall. The Janissaries were no longer an asset, they were a liability. The instrument of Ottoman power had become a threat to the sultan himself. Returning to Istanbul, Osman was more determined than ever. His plan was audacious, bordering on unthinkable. He would get rid of the Janissaries. He planned to close their barracks, cut off their funding, and build a brand new army from scratch. This new force would be recruited from the loyal Turkish and Turkmen populations of Anatolia and Syria, a force loyal only to him, the Sultan. This wasn't just a military reform, it was a political revolution. He also planned to move the capital. He wanted to shift the center of power away from the corrupting influence of Istanbul and its entrenched elites, perhaps to Bursa or even Damascus. He aimed to slash the power of the palace factions and the conservative clerical establishment, the ulema, who often sided with the Janissaries. In essence, Osman was trying to hit the reset button on the entire Ottoman system. He wanted to return to a purer, more disciplined form of governance, with the Sultan firmly in control, just as it had been in the empire's golden age. It was a bold, visionary plan. It was also political suicide. Secrets in a palace as porous as the Topkapi are impossible to keep. Whispers of the Sultan's plans began to circulate. The Janissaries, the Pashas, the clerics, everyone whose power and privilege Osman threatened, began to conspire. They saw a young, arrogant ruler trying to dismantle a system that had served their interests for generations. They weren't just going to stand by and let it happen. The tension in Istanbul became unbearable. The air crackled with rumor and rebellion. In May of 1622, the storm finally broke. The Janissaries, fueled by rumors that the Sultan was about to leave for Anatolia to raise his new army, rose in open revolt. They stormed through the city, demanding the heads of the Sultan's advisors. Osman, trapped in the Topkapi Palace, found himself isolated. The very soldiers sworn to protect him were now baying for his blood at the gates. He tried to reason with them, but it was too late. The mob broke into the palace grounds. What followed was one of the most shameful episodes in Ottoman history. The rebels seized the young Sultan. They subjected him to public humiliation, parading him through the streets of Istanbul on a common cart, hurling insults and abuse. This was not just a rebellion. It was a desecration of the sacred office of the Sultan. For the first time, the people of the empire saw their Padishah, the shadow of God on earth, treated like a common criminal. They dragged him to the infamous Yedikul fortress, the grim prison of the Seven Towers. There, in a dark, cold cell, the final act of this tragedy unfolded. A group of assassins, led by the new Grand Vizier, confronted the 17-year-old Sultan. Osman, despite his age, fought for his life with the strength of a lion. He was an emperor, a warrior, and he would not go down without a fight. But he was outnumbered. In the struggle, he was brutally overpowered and strangled to death. He became the first Ottoman Sultan to be murdered by his own subjects, his own soldiers. The assassination of Osman II sent a seismic shockwave across the empire. It was an unthinkable act that shattered the centuries-old aura of inviolability surrounding the person of the Sultan. The balance of power was irrevocably broken. It proved that the Janissaries, not the Sultan, now held the ultimate power in the capital. They could make and unmake sultans at will. Osman's death was a brutal lesson. It showed that even the most well-intentioned reforms could fail if they were too radical, too fast, and challenged too many powerful interests at once. His successors would learn this lesson, often choosing compromise and appeasement over confrontation for decades to come. The problem of Janissary power would continue to plague the empire for another 200 years, until Sultan Mahmud II finally and violently abolished the court in 1826. So, how do we remember Genç Osman? Was he a reckless and naive boy who overplayed his hand? Or was he a visionary reformer born in the wrong century? The truth, as it often is, lies somewhere in between. He was undoubtedly a tragic figure. His ambition was his greatest strength and his fatal flaw. He saw the disease infecting the Ottoman state with stunning clarity, but his cure was too radical for the patient to endure. His 4-year reign was a flash of lightning that briefly illuminated the deep structural problems of the empire, foreshadowing the long, slow decline that lay ahead. The story of Osman the Young is a powerful reminder that even on the world's most magnificent stage, a single person's vision, courage, and ultimate sacrifice can echo through the halls of history forever. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the dramatic life of Sultan Osman II. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next dive into the captivating pages of history. Let us know in the comments what you think about Osman's legacy. We'll see you next time.